Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Honest HR Nitrous. I am Bill, the company's expert. Thank you for joining me today. Hopefully, everybody can hear me okay. My microphone has been bumped. Let's see if I can adjust that. There we go. Right on. Well, welcome to the weekly live stream. Actually, this week I'm doing it more than once a week. I'm doing it today and on Wednesdays. But the weekly live stream where we talk about hiring, careers, employment, job search, all that kind of stuff. But I'm making an effort to try and talk about this honestly and cut through some of the crap that you've probably heard on this topic. Because let me tell you, there is a lot. There is a lot of that. And this is an interactive live stream. So if you see my beautiful face with my shiny new haircut, I did this for you, so hopefully you understand the gravity of the situation. If you're seeing my face, you should see a chat box somewhere nearby. Get in the chat box. Let me know what you're wondering about, what you're struggling with, and I will do my best to help you out. The title of this episode is How to Assess Your Value. So we are going to be talking about that. Now, a value is kind of one of those words that means whatever the hell you want it to mean, depending on the context and depending on who is saying it. So, this is what results in a lot of confusion. And if you are here, you may be between jobs, you may be looking for a job, and you might have heard that word thrown around, your value. And I'm here to tell you that your value is a completely different thing from what an employer will judge your value to be. But you probably already suspected that. If you are here and you are listening to this, I got news for you. You may be aware of this, you may not be aware of this. You are awesome. You may not feel like that all the time, but you are. What a lot of entities are trying to do these days is reduce us all to a series of demographic boxes that are checked. And that is false. We are all individuals. We all have unique combinations of different things. And there are so many different things. There's so many dimensions to this that everyone is pretty much unique. And that shows up in the workforce. And this is what's led to a lot of some of the issues with hiring in this modern age, because people are simply reduced to a list of checkboxes. It goes far deeper than that. It ignores a lot of people's unique skills and talents. And I can tell you from somebody who ran teams of people, like departments full of people, combinations of different types of people working together and how you get them to work together can result in a lot of really valuable skills and abilities. So this is what I fear is often neglected or not taken into account, especially when hiring people for worker level jobs in this day and age. Even in manager level, they don't do a better job at this really in a lot of circles. So yeah, I mean, put it this way, okay? I think most people will agree that, you take something very, very basic, like introvert versus extrovert, okay? Now, there's different definitions of those terms. People might have their own informal definitions, right? Personally, I go by the Myers-Briggs type indicator when it comes to that stuff. I thought that the way that was, I don't want to say the way it was originally designed, but the way it existed in, say, the 80s, 90s, 2000s, before they messed with it, I think was really, really well. They defined introvert as someone who can do social interaction, but the problem was that it was an energy draining experience for them. It doesn't say anything about their abilities, whether it's public speaking or interacting with people, communicating with people, working with people. There's nothing to say about how good they are. It just says that when these type of people do social interaction, it's an energy draining experience for them. That means they don't do it for fun. It's not their idea of a good time. These are the types of people that when they come home after, a hard day, they go off by themselves to recharge. They watch TV, they read a book, they do something basically alone, right? To recharge the battery. That's simply what an introvert means if you go by the Myers-Briggs definition. And extrovert is the opposite, someone who finds social interaction an energy charging activity. They do it for fun. These are the types of people that come home after a hard day and they surround themselves with 50 people, maybe 50 people they don't even know super well, and they get to know them. That's their idea of a good time. That's what they do to recharge the battery. Now, yes, there can be a correlation between, if you love doing it, you tend to get better at it. Yeah. But that's far from a sure thing. I've known lots of introverts that absolutely excel at social interaction, whether it's sales, certain types of sales. Like, for example, if you are a technical salesperson, you're selling something very technical to someone else, right? The last thing a lot of engineer types want to deal with is some silver-tongued salesperson that, it's all talk, no substance, tries to, sell them anything, doesn't care really, pretends to be their best friend. That's the last thing those people want. They'd rather talk to someone like them. Someone who is familiar with the technical side of things, can answer questions about it. If they have a technical question, this person can answer it, right? But they can also explain the benefits, why you would want to choose this over something else, right? So there you go, right off the bat. Someone who's an introvert that excels at a certain type of sales. I've seen that. It blew me away. I think it's amazing. Art Sim is here. Art Sim says, hey, a man of, or woman of few words is Art Sim. But thank you for being here, Art Sim. Let me know what you're dealing with, what you're wondering about. As I said, the topic of this is how to assess your value. We're kind of on our way to talking about that. Why am I talking about introverts and extroverts? Well, one of the kind of things these days is the perception, and it's more than just a perception, but the perception that extroverts have an easier time impressing people, making a good first impression, and therefore doing better in things like job interviews. Right? Let me know if you agree with that. Get in the chat, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. And I have to say, I agree with that. Certainly by the standards that are used and by the people who assess someone's value, because the way you assess someone's value is going to be based on your own value system, what you value and what you think is good, right? For example, another thing is that people tend to hire in their own image. They tend to value people who are like them, right? An introvert meets another introvert, and they're probably going to think, yeah, I like the cut of your jib. Whereas an introvert meets an extrovert, and the introvert thinks, oh, not again. Tell me if you've heard that one before. Art says, I applied at a local state university for an online MBA program. Is it worth it? I have 20 years of work experience, but everything I read online, people say MBA is just money grabs. Well, okay. Hello. I might be a little biased in my answer because I do sell my own MBA course. Okay. So here's the deal. I have an MBA. I've also been a CEO. Here's my 2 cents. I mean, I've done videos on this. You can look up my videos and get a more refined version of this. But okay, here's the deal. What you learn in an accredited MBA program is damn useful. Okay, it's useful for your career. Now, it's useful in 2 ways. One, you got a piece of paper that can impress people, right? But you have the actual learning, okay? So even if you don't impress anyone with your educational credentials, you can apply the learning, okay? It's like learning how things work. Is that useful? Of course it is. You understand what, say an employer's priorities really are, in what order, what trumps what, right? That's what you understand for a start, and many other things besides. It helps you to be better at running things. So if you want to climb the ladder, and you're not doing it by impressing people with your credentials, you're doing it by actually making better decisions so that things work out better for you and the thing that you're put in charge of, right? It'll help you. Okay, so there's the intrinsic value, and then there's the sort of, like cosmetic value, shall we say. So it's definitely a thing worth doing, okay? Especially for people when they get a bit older. Like you said, you have 20 years worth of experience. So you're probably not just entering the workforce, I'm surmising. So when you get a little bit further on in your career, you're probably thinking about getting promoted, getting into management, all that kind of stuff. If you're not there already, this will help you, okay, in more ways than one. However, okay, the second thing that I think you said is also true. It's that it is a bit of a money grab, meaning that in my personal opinion, a lot of schools, universities, colleges, other institutions, they charge way too much for what they're doing for you. And the reason I say that is because it's like paying someone to teach you grade 12 mathematics. Okay? To learn grade 12 mathematics, nobody owns this knowledge. It's been in the public domain for hundreds of years, if not thousands, right? You can easily buy a book on it on Amazon. You can read the book. You can do the problems. You can learn it yourself, right? For the cost of a $5 book, right? Now, if somebody wants to charge you $10,000 to teach you grade 12 mathematics, is that something you should do? Well, I agree you should learn grade 12 mathematics, probably a useful thing, but to pay $10,000 for it, in my opinion, which is an albeit biased opinion, I think that's too high. A lot of what they, I would say all of what they teach you, all of what's really relevant that you would learn in an MBA is in the public domain. It's over, 100 years old, over 50 years old, all the fundamentals, all the real valuable stuff. So my personal opinion is that you should get the knowledge. Okay, it is definitely a useful thing. It enables you to do a variety of different things. Okay, but people that charge $50,000 and up for like a MBA, I think is crap. The possible exception is if you have the opportunity to get alongside people that have won Nobel Prizes and things. Maybe there's some extra value in that, okay? Just by being associated with them, having them in your network, being able to call them up and perhaps ask a question, that might be very useful. So if you have like real superstar professors teaching you and they know you personally, that may have value, okay? So I'm willing to admit that. But otherwise, to learn the material, it's not worth that much, in my opinion. The other thing that may be of value is if you go to like a brick and mortar MBA, not an online school, but you go to a brick and mortar MBA and you are rubbing elbows with perhaps the one percenters, the aristocratic families in your city or whatever. If you are going to take advantage of that and do some networking and, make sure they all know you and, all this kind of stuff and look for jobs at the companies that their families own or something, okay, there's value there too. Okay. That's what people talk about when they talk about networking opportunities. But unless you're prepared to do that, then it's worthless. It really doesn't give you an advantage. If you go there and don't talk to anyone and don't make any friends and, you know what I mean? So that's kind of my assessment of it. So, I mean, since you asked, I have a course, right? So obviously my view, you could look at it as being a little bit biased. I mean, it's based on, I did the course because I believe what I believe. I have an MBA and I've seen other people with MBAs and, you know what I mean? It's a useful thing, but it's not the be all end all. It doesn't substitute for experience in business. So you have to get the experience. If you've got 20 years being out in the workforce doing various things, then, that's something that no one can, there's no substitute for, as I'm sure you'll agree. Okay. So, I mean, I created my course so somebody for $100 can get the learning. Okay. It's unaccredited. So if you're not trying to impress anyone with your fancy credential, this would be a solution for you. If however you want an accredited thing, for a specific purpose, then obviously it's not the solution for you. But you get the same learning. You can get the same learning from my course as you can from any brick and mortar MBA because it uses the material, like the textbooks and stuff that are used in things like Harvard MBA programs, the Harvard MBA program, and other highly prominent programs around the world. So that's what you're getting because all that stuff is out there, right? Anyway, I'm not here to talk forever about my own course, but hopefully that makes sense. That gives you something to go on. So if you need an accredited MBA, get it from some place that is accredited but cheap. Okay, in my opinion, especially if it's an online university or something where you're not, those networking connections are not going to be as strong as if you were in person. Okay, in a brick and mortar type situation. So that's what I would say about that. Unconventional advice that works says, glad I'm catching you live. Thanks for doing this. You're absolutely welcome. Unconventional advice. Art Sim, the program is 100% online and you meet no one. That's why I'm apprehensive. Yes, I agree. So if they charge you a reasonable amount of money, considering the amount of hours you would put in, I would say I don't know. I would say like $5,000. Sure. Accredited. Sure. No brainer. $10,000 in this day and age online. I don't know. I think the upper limit is somewhere between 5 and 10,000. Now, I don't know what they're charging these days. I haven't I don't check that on a regular basis, but that's my gut feeling. Okay. A lot of people get an MBA under the promise, like schools they want to sell you this because as a student, you're their customer. So they want to tell you that this thing will open so many doors. They sell you the promise that once you get this, people will instantly hire you. That's not true. Okay. There's a lot of caveats to that. Okay. So don't believe that, or don't believe me, don't believe them. Go and do your own research. The simplest thing to do would be type the name of the educational credential into LinkedIn, do a people search for people in your industry or your geographic location, and see how many results you get. See who's got this degree from this place and see what jobs they're in. Like if they're all CEOs or something, like that tells you something. If hardly anyone has it and they're all in entry-level jobs, that tells you something else. So do your own research and make a sort of cold calculated decision on what's the right thing to do. And if you do decide not to do that, there's always mine. Shameless plug. But hopefully that makes sense. That's my honest thoughts about it for what that's worth. But don't take anyone's word for it. Go do your own research. Don't believe any claim. Go verify. Unconventional advice says, agree. If you are studying for an accredited MBA degree in person without doing any networking and contributing to class learning, you're wasting your time and tuition money. Yeah, like networking, I talk about that all the time. I try and get away from talking about it, but it really is so damn important. The reason why a lot of people have a bit of a hang up when I say that word is because they don't know what it is. They think it's this slimy salesperson kind of thing, like I'm going to come and network with you, some 21-year-old jackass in a new suit with the spiky hair, and now you got the lumberjack beard and the spiky hair, and coming with their hands out, coming to meet you, and it's like, get the hell away from me, right? That's what a lot of people think it is. It isn't. At least if you do it properly, it's not that, right? Carrie Adams says, hey to Carrie Adams. Art Sim, sorry, I meant to say the program I applied to is. Okay, I think I got that. Yeah, I got that from the last thing you said. Now, me being an introvert, I place less faith on the in-class participation component. I don't necessarily think, here's the thing, okay? Some things, I don't know, you can have a discussion about, conversation about, but other things, it's like, there's a right answer and a wrong answer. There's nothing to discuss. It's like teaching mathematics. What's 9 times 9? 81, right? I don't need to have a discussion about it. Let's get everyone's perspective and let's kick it. It's like, what? No, it's 81. And if you don't agree with that, you're wrong, discussion over, you know what I mean? So a lot of topics in the MBA program, when you talk about the fundamentals of accounting and, and finance and marketing and HR and economics. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's limits to, you know what I mean? Like, what you can discuss. This is the right way. Every other way is wrong. Discussion over. There are a few topics if you're discussing strategy, because the problem is, as you get to more complex topics, like there's different principles and you don't really know in what situation which principle will win out, right? A lot of different conflicting sort of principles are going on. And you know what I mean? So, and the way to learn that is not with a discussion, it's with experience. If you really want to know what you're talking about, you can't fake it just by being in a discussion with a few people who actually know what they're talking about and then just repeat, in my opinion. That's my personal opinion based on what I've seen. Atif says, I think MBA is becoming obsolete as the world is changing so drastically the theory is not in practice. False. No, that's not true. I mean, it's like saying the study of science is becoming obsolete because we're just moving on. It's like, what? No, wrong. Yeah, science is progressing, but science itself is not obsolete. If you have an accredited MBA degree, that's the gold standard for how to be a general manager, how to manage something. They took all that learning, people who have studied this stuff for hundreds of years and continue to study this stuff today with data. These are people that have PhDs in business who work in universities that study, what's actually going on and how things work. And it's all peer reviewed and it's all, verified and all this. And they put all that learning into the business programs of reputable universities. It's still the gold standard of how to do anything. Just like a medical degree is the gold standard for how to be a doctor, right? So it's not obsolete. It does evolve, right? But I don't see it going away any more than I see a degree in science going away if you want to learn science. There's just so much BS about it. Like out in the real world, you get on social media, you get all kinds of idiocy and you get people going, this one person managed to become a billionaire without having an MBA. Therefore, an MBA is absolutely worthless. Okay, that's anecdotal and completely wrong, but it preys on people with no critical thinking skills. That's the problem. Art Sim, honestly don't even know what I want to do. I just feel stagnant in my current role. I feel just as smart as current leadership, but it's so hard to break through. Yeah, that's a tough one. Listen, here, this is great. It's great that you said that, Art Sim, because this gets back to what I actually wanted to talk about, which is your value. And, everyone, I can tell you from someone in their 50s, everyone gets like a midlife crisis, okay? Some a little harder than others, but it's a real thing. And you get to that point. Some people get this in their 20s, some people get it in their 50s, but somewhere in there, you get to this point where you question your whole direction and what you're doing and why you're doing it and if it's really worth it. And if it isn't, what do you want to do instead, right? That's a very common thing. You're not alone. Okay, if that's what's going through your head, I'm here to tell you, you are absolutely normal for feeling like that. Okay? The life cycle of most people actually is in your 20s, you feel sure of yourself. You feel, especially in your early 20s, like, nobody can tell you anything because you're going to conquer the world. You're going to change the world. And damn it, you're right. And you know better. And then what typically happens is that in your 30s, you feel defeated. You feel like disillusioned. You feel like, I thought I knew it all, but apparently I don't because things are not really working out the way I predicted them. Right? And then in your 40s or sometimes 50s, you kind of find new meaning. You go in a new direction and you're generally more content with that. Obviously, this is just a general rule, but most people experience this in some form. And I'm no exception. And, so don't feel too bad about it. What you're feeling is absolutely normal, and that's when the real learning begins, when you shed that idealism of youth, shall we say, where like, you've never seen anything, you've never done anything, but God damn it, you know how to do it better, right? Like that attitude. Trust me, we need that attitude, that rebellious attitude of youth, because that's what sometimes manages to shake up things and push the world in a new direction. And this is a good thing, okay? But it's damn hard to do. It's damn hard to be right when you haven't done anything and you haven't seen anything. That's the problem. So usually, it's like getting a hole-in-one in golf. Yes, some people get a hole-in-one. Yes, some people who are amateurs who don't really know how to play golf have played golf once, and the first thing they do is they get a hole-in-one. Yes, that does happen. Those are the ones that shake things up. But most people don't, right? But what's happening is that your eyes are being opened. You're learning, you're seeing and believing how much you actually don't know. And then the real learning begins when you have a truly open mind, right? You lose some of that, what do you call it? Like arrogance. I'm not trying to be rude, but you get a bit more humble. And then your mind is truly opening to observing and go, now I see why things didn't work out before. Now I get it, right? So that's when some magic can happen, okay? I mean, for you, I don't know, an MBA could help in that process. Learning is always good, okay? It depends, what type of person you are, what your goals are, what you enjoy doing, and what opportunities come your way. And, no one can answer those questions but you. And don't worry if the answer doesn't immediately come to you. Sometimes it takes a bit of time. Things just have to fall into your lap, and then, it's a great opportunity. Where did I leave off here? Atif says, I like your teaching style. It's clear, articulate, and to the point. No one can learn more from your discussion than an MBA. Well, thanks for being so generous. No, I have a respect for, like, in the world of business, if you're wanting to learn business, an MBA is the gold standard. It just is. That's what it is. Like, if you want to learn biology, a bachelor degree in biology is the thing you do. It would be like somebody saying, no, don't believe that crap from universities. They claim they can teach you biology, but they really don't know jack's squat, whatever the expression is. You could learn biology by buying this book. It'll teach you more than a bachelor degree in biology. It's like, no, probably not, that's why despite a lot of the stupid things that universities and colleges and the educational system in general is kind of doing, it still is the place you go to learn. It really is. Some of them are a bit too salesy. Some of them are a bit too political, but, providing you go to a half decent one, maybe you ignore some of the crap that's, injected into it. It still is the best way to learn whatever it is you're wanting to learn. Trust me, I am no fan of the educational system. That was reinforced to me like 5-10 years ago when I went back and did some teaching in academia. I'm not an academia type person. I'm from the private sector, and like, holy crap, talk about culture difference. I did not like it, but it still is the place to learn the theory behind a lot of things. Then you go and you get experience. It's just that simple. But thank you for the compliment, Atif. That's very kind of you. Unconventional advice says, yes, contributing to MBA class learning, as in showing up on time, a learning attitude, doing assignments, offering relevant examples and strategy, HR marketing. Yeah. Like, look, I'm not saying discussion is bad. It just, to me, I think they have a little too many discussions, when they're trying to teach you some principles, having a discussion of whether it's true or not. I remember being in, teaching in a university HR program, like as part of their business program. I was doing a couple of courses in HR, and one of them was a safety course. You might be surprised that the safety, teaching you about occupational health and safety is in the HR program. But when you think about it, it is, because it has to do with employees, and anything to do with employees falls under the category of the HR department, right? So if you're a safety officer, like I was the head of safety for a company at one point. That's part of the HR department, technically. So where do you learn that? You learn that in the HR department. So it's weird that you're teaching people that want to be like recruiters and things about occupational health and safety. And I remember this was academia, so they had a lot of, notes for you, like how you teach and all this kind of stuff, which I thought was really weird. And they wanted tons of discussions about everything. And I remember I just remember this moment where, like, one of the first things that you start off with when you study safety is you start off with the premise that all accidents are preventable. Like, if you had full and complete knowledge, if you had advanced knowledge, you could have prevented any kind of incident that ever happens, right? Like there's a bomb on board a plane, like whatever. Like if you knew in advance, or you had advanced ways of detecting, or, whatever, you could have prevented it, right? I'm not saying that, we have full and complete knowledge, but it is theoretically possible to prevent any incident if you have foreknowledge, and you will be able to get foreknowledge in theory. It is possible. So that's like the holy grail of safety, is to just be able to prevent any kind of incident that results in anything bad. So I remember we had to have a discussion on whether you agree with this. It's like, what? And then of course all the students that didn't know anything about safety said, well, no, I believe, you can't prevent it. It's like people that come from various cultures and stuff where like they have terrible safety records, like telling me, oh yeah, I believe that, it can't be prevented. So it's kind of pointless studying it. It's like, what the hell are we doing here then? It's like, no, too many discussions. I wouldn't want to have a discussion on 1 + 1 = 2, because there's always going to be somebody that's going to say, oh, well, in non-Euclidean geometry, it's like, no. Anyway, I have dissolved into incoherent babbling. I just like to make that known. But it's great to see you guys engaging with this, surprisingly. I'm surprised that you guys are so interested in the MBA topic. Leo Sunshine says, sometimes I tell myself that I'm worth way more than what I'm paid at work. How do you realize your self-value and made the decision to transition from working with the railroad to what you do now? Oh, how much time do you have? Bottom line is, I didn't like that industry. I was young when I entered it. And they succeeded to a degree to pull the wool over my eyes and make me think that it was a place I should be. And one of the ways they did that was they paid pretty damn good for like essentially entry-level job just out of university. So I got sucked in, and it took me several years to realize what had happened and how there's no real future there. It was people that didn't respect learning and all this kind of stuff, and it was just... So it took a while for me to break out. And so I went from the railroad to the fashion industry. Like you do. But you go where the opportunities are. I didn't work in fashion, but I worked for a company that did fashion. But yeah, it's similar to what we were saying before. Somebody was talking about getting a bit disillusioned, not really knowing what direction they want to go in. It was kind of like that. And the other thing is there was shift work. There was all kinds of other factors there. So, yeah. But a lot of people are in a similar situation, And I can tell you something, Leo Sunshine. You're talking about you feel like you're worth more than you're being paid at work. I can pretty much guarantee that you are. The only way you would be that you would be worth what they're paying you at work is if you are employing all the skills you have, all the knowledge you have, right? All the talents you have in your job at work, right? And I can almost guarantee that they're not, right? I'm sure you can do several things that are not part of your day job, right? Right? And because they're only utilizing a subset of your usefulness, they won't be paying you your theoretical full value, right? Another thing I regularly talk about, I haven't talked about it for 2 weeks, but I will be talking about it soon, is entrepreneurship. That's more of what my core competency is rather than like the hiring thing. Because I think it's, the opportunities now are amazing for being able to go and do your own thing, be able to make money directly without needing an employer to be the intermediary between you and the value you generate, right? Like this is the thing. If you had your own business, let's say, just hypothetically, come with me here. If you had your own business where, you worked at it and you made money directly, so you sold something, right? And all those different sort of departments of business were all done by you. So you did the operations, you created whatever it is that you're selling. Then you were the marketing person, the salesperson. Then you were the accountant, you were the finance person. You were the CEO, the strategist, right? You did all of this, right? Some people that have family businesses, what I'm talking about. Maybe you have like a construction company or something, you do drywall or you do framing or you do plumbing or whatever, right? You could be one person that has their own business. It would be pretty easy to see what your value is, right? So if you have a plumbing business and you're working as a plumber and you make $100,000 a year, that's your value as a plumber. Maybe you're the type of person that can do more than one thing. Maybe you could do plumbing and you could also do graphic design. So maybe after 10 years of being a plumber, you decide, hey, maybe I'm ready for a change and I'm going to try and dump the plumbing business. I'll sell it to someone or I'll just drop it. And then I'll start a graphic design business where I do graphic design services for, other companies or something. Maybe you make $50,000 a year doing that for a couple of years, right? It's pretty easy to see what your value is, right? Maybe you can combine the two into one somehow. I don't know how you could combine plumbing and graphic design, but you could bring them together. You could make more money, So it's pretty easy to see what your value is. When you're working for an employer, you're like, let's make it simple. Let's say that you're working for an employer that only has 10 employees. There are 10 people in the company, and that includes the big boss, right? So the big boss and then all the other people, they're a total of 10 people, right? So you are one of them and you help them bring in $10 million a year. Okay. Or like, I don't know, $2 million, whatever it is. Well, how do you determine of that $10 million, what was proportional to your contribution and what was proportional to other people's contribution, right? There's no scientific way of doing this, right? All you know is that the 10 of you together generate $10 million a year worth of value. That's all you can say scientifically, right? Any sort of theory of like, okay, we all equally contributed, or 90% was because of the decisions the boss made, and 10% was really like what the other 9 did. Everyone's got their own theory and they can't be proved one way or another, right? So how can someone say that if you were one of those 10 employees, your value is $1 million a year or $8 million a year or like $50,000 a year? No one can say that with any certainty. Yet this is what the HR department kind of has to do, right? When they decide how much compensation they're going to give to different employees, right? Now, you're also missing a premium because you don't know how to convert your value into money, right? That's what you need the employer for. You can't do this on your own, right? If you could, you would keep all the pie, right, of what you generate. But because you're going through an agent, an intermediary, which is your employer, you don't know how to make money yourself. All you know how to do is plumbing or graphic design. So they're the ones that worry about selling it and, converting it for you. So they take a cut, right? So that's why, generally speaking, you will make more money on your own than with an employer, right? That's one factor at play. The other factor, of course, is that bigger organizations, all things being equal, usually have economies of scale, which means that they are more efficient than an individual. So you got these two conflicting sort of factors here, right? So that just muddies the waters even more. And like, what's your worth? Who can say? Now, this is the problem that a recruiter has, for example, when they interview you for a job and you discuss compensation, or before they even get to you, they decide how much should we pay the candidate that we hire in this position, right? And the bottom line is they don't know. There's too many question marks. So they take a wild guess and then they'll try to convince you that's what you're worth, all right? And this is what's going on. And this is evidence where you go to a company, they pay you peanuts. Maybe you work in like a menial job, right? But then you quit that job, you get offered another much better job, you're making 4 times as much money. You haven't changed. You always had the same amount of value. It's just that these people value you much more, right? It doesn't seem to make sense, right? It's because they don't know how much you're worth. Okay, another rant. I'm coming back here. Okay, Art Sim says, "Oh, you are amazing. Wow, thank you. Could you be my mentor? I would pay you." Well, you could give me a super chat if you really feel you need to do that, or you could just tune into my live streams. I'm here Mondays and Wednesdays. Unconventional advice that works. One advantage of an in-person MBA is access to career services, expert visitors, industry meet and greets. Yeah, you see, okay, true. But number one, that's the standard sales pitch of a lot of schools to get you to buy. And usually it involves big promises and then they underdeliver, right? I mean, if you had a couple of medium grade celebrity guest speakers per year, would that justify you paying like an extra $5,000, $10,000 for your degree? You know, especially if it was stuff that it's possible to get like on YouTube, or, you know, you don't have to be in the program. You could just, you see, most universities, you can walk in and go sit in a class, right? At least you used to be able to do that like 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, they don't take attendance. They don't check, you know, you go through the turnstile or anything like that, or sell tickets or anything for a lot of things. So, you know, I mean, I've gone to universities to hear keynote speeches and stuff like that. Some celebrity or whatever would come to town. I'd go. You know what I mean? You can do this kind of thing. All I'm saying is that, yes, you're correct in theory, but in practice, I suspect that across the board, it doesn't equate to how much they're charging you. In my opinion, just my opinion. Mind you, I'm rather biased against the educational system and some of the things they do. You're welcome to Leo Sunshine. Art Sim says, I love the idea of entrepreneurship, but the challenge for me is that it's all about relationships and sales. I'm not good at that. I'm just good at working hard. Okay, well, certainly that's true for some things that you could do in the world of entrepreneurship, Art, but not everything, right? Now, look what we're talking. Look how you're talking to me. I've got a YouTube channel. Now, to build a YouTube channel, is it all about relationships and sales? No, I would say it's more about working hard, right? Like you put it, doing lots of videos and, you know, all this kind of thing. That's because you offload all the sales and stuff like that to YouTube, right? They're like an agent for you. They'll take your content and then they'll try and get it in front of people that in theory want to watch it. They handle that. You don't have to concern yourself with that. You just have to be on the operations side creating the content, right? So that's one example of something where it isn't all about sales. Now, a lot of it is, but the other thing is that if you're a smart person or you're an introvert, or like me, you're a technical introvert, you can do sales in certain industries, in certain ways, that work for you. It's actually not rocket science. I mean, if you know a lot of technical things, I mean, sales is really not that hard in comparison. There's a lot of, how can I put this, dumb people that can do sales effectively. But they couldn't do stuff that you got to do on a daily basis, right? It really isn't rocket science. So if you can control, sort of what you have to do for sales. Say you decide, I'm only going to do sales over the internet. It's not going to be in person. I'm not going to have to show up. I'm not going to have to talk to anyone. I'm not going to have to talk on the phone to anyone. It's all going to be on social media or on the internet. And that will be my sales. Say you have like an e-store or something like that, and it's all online marketing, right? I mean, hey, there are custom solutions for whatever your talents happen to be. I'm not trying to sell anyone on doing entrepreneurship. I'm just saying that people, the reason why they don't do stuff that maybe they'd be good at is because they have a preconceived notion of what they think it is, when it in fact is not that thing. You can make it work for you. You just have to learn about what's possible. So make sure you're not falling into that trap. Okay. Where did I leave off here? Unconventional advice says fashion business. That's why you show up and say, oh yeah, totally. Yeah, you can take one look at me and just realize that Fabio is scared. Unconventional advice says, thanks for your perspective on MBA. You're right. The experience depends on the size, location, reputation, or attempt to justify the exorbitant tuition. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Maybe my problem is that traditionally I thought that well-established universities were kind of above those cheap, high-pressure sales tactics. And what I've observed in the last 10 years is that they're not, They're promising the earth and the sky. It's not necessarily true to get anyone to go into these programs. And in some cases, they're cannibalizing their reputation and the goodwill built up by these universities as places like where the degree means something. It's a real statement of accomplishment and value that your stuff in this area if you got a degree from there. And they're cannibalizing that. They're burning through that goodwill by using it to, employ high pressure sales tactics and make all these claims that I think are false, just to pressure people and promise young people like, oh, if you get this degree, you will have a job guaranteed and, your future is bright. And then a lot of people are finding that's not the case. And it's like, no, it isn't. Not if you just, you take a degree and you just expect a job to be handed to you. You haven't networked. You don't know anything about the industry you're going in. You don't know where the jobs are. You don't know what people with that credential actually do, what jobs they actually work in, right? That's something I learned. You see, I took a degree in engineering, and nobody bothered to tell me at any point during my education, before I graduated with a degree in engineering, nobody told me that, you can do other things with this degree besides be an engineer. Somebody asked me earlier, why did you sort of end up in the railroad? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because they were hiring in my hometown people with degrees in engineering to go work at the railroad, but not doing engineering, not doing design. You would be like the sort of, shall we say, chief mechanic in a place that, in my case, it fixed locomotives. So locomotive comes in, locomotives that pull trains, right? Locomotive has electrical systems in it, mechanical systems in it, like a car, right? They break down a lot, and they need people to fix them. And locomotives were getting so complex, like with computer systems and all kinds of stuff, that like just a grease monkey can't, always figure it out or whatever. So you need someone to help advise them, to guide them, right? And then they needed people to run these teams of electricians and mechanics. So they were hiring people out of school with engineering degrees. Don't ask me why, but that's how they thought at the time. So they offered you a hell of a lot of money. So it's like I took it, and then I ended up, getting hired for having a degree, but I'm not actually using the thing that degree is for. And then I since learned that, like, wow, this degree is, it's good for more than just working as an engineer. It's a statement of, well, you're trainable, you're smart, you've got a good work ethic, you can wrap your head around some pretty tough problems. You have to be organized, and like a laundry list of things it supposedly demonstrates. And that's why people were hiring, and they were saying, if you have this degree, that's a good thing. So that's how I ended up in that business. And we still get that today. You still get like people that come out of university and they might have like a degree in whatever, law, science, whatever. And you think like, okay, well, if I got a degree in law, I should be a lawyer, right? But then you realize, well, there's a lot of other jobs that will hire you if you have a degree in law. Maybe you don't want to be a lawyer, or maybe it's lost its shine for you. There's a lot of other options. And I was clueless at the time, but I've since learned that you can find this stuff out. Like, use LinkedIn as a research tool. See what's out there. And then, like, ignoring all the people, of course, who don't even get a conventional job. They go into business for themselves, doing little odds and ends at the beginning, and then it builds into something, right? Or they get a job for a few years, and then they turn that job into their own entrepreneurship venture, right? They just do the same thing that they would do in a day job, but they're a contractor, right? That's like the simplest form of it. Art Sim says, I guess what I'm saying is that I'm not good at schmoozing. That's what I think of when I hear entrepreneur. It's interesting. You see, entrepreneurship to me is the opposite of that. It's like people that don't want to deal with going to work in a big organization where they have to be in fear of their boss and they have to look busy and all that stupidity that comes with, most jobs. They think instead, like, look, I want to work on what I want to work on, where I can bring value. And when I know it results in something, I don't want to do busy work. I don't want to do work that turns out to be all just useless. It didn't do any good, I mean, I don't know about you guys. I had a job where I got hired with a company. I helped build up the company quite a bit, put all these things in place, and then they were acquired. And then they wanted to integrate us into their larger company, which meant that all, or not all, but the majority of what I'd put in place, like all these capabilities that I'd sort of set up and done, it's like I now would have to spend the next 2 years undoing all that and like converting it over to the systems that they already have in place that we just have to conform to. And, I said, I have no interest in doing that whatsoever. Like, it feels like going backwards. I built all this stuff up. It's partly this that made us like a good acquisition target in the first place. The reason you guys bought us was because of all the value we had, and this is the source of a lot of that value. I don't want to spend the next 2 years just dismantling it. So I left. You know what I mean? Like, just busy work, right? Like work that doesn't really result in anything. I'm sure you guys have stories of, stuff you've done in a day job that it turns out that everything you built up or everything you worked towards, it all ended up being pointless, So to me, entrepreneurship is like an escape from that. It's like, I want to build something up that's going to benefit me. And I'm not going to like change my mind and reverse course and, undo everything I just did. You know what I mean? I want to only work on stuff that matters, and I only want to work on stuff that is to my advantage to work on. Right? It's a getaway from the corporate bureaucratic rat race. Now I know what you're saying. Entrepreneurship is schmoozing. There are definitely some types of business where you have to go out and a big part of your role is drumming up business, creating relationships with maybe institutional customers, this kind of thing. Definitely. Yeah. But it's not all like that. It doesn't have to be like that if that's not the type of person you are, and it's not a business model that you choose. Schmoozing can be learned. This is from a technical introvert. Absolutely. I wish I could heart comments from here. I can't. But yes, I wholeheartedly agree with that. Leo Sunshine says, I earned a bachelor's in environmental studies, and now I work for a hospital because no one told me that I would need to get a master's and put all my efforts into publishing in order to get a job. But I'm learning a lot in my hospital admin support role, and I might consider getting an MHA. What's an MHA? Is that Masters of Hospital Administration? I'm guessing. Yeah, like this is the thing. You see, that's the problem with schools, is that they have a lot of advantages. Okay, like they are the seat of learning. You know, the professors and stuff in school are the authorities on whatever, you know, their area is. But their Achilles heel has always been that they are disconnected from what's going on in the real world. That's always been their problem. So they'll give you a degree and then they'll be wrong on its value or how you use it, right? That's the problem. This is where, you know, it would be really nice if they took you aside and said, like, look, you know, we are the authorities on this area here, but not beyond this point. Beyond this point about, like, you know, what you can actually do with this degree and what they're looking for right now and, you know, all this. That's where our expertise ends. Counterintuitively, that's where it ends. You have to now go out and, based on whatever ambition you have to go and figure out, like, what, you know, is required to do, right? Now, in your case, Leo Sunshine, what might have been useful is had they years ago taught you how to do informational interviews. So let's say you wanted to work in environmental studies, right? Okay. Like, I know you got a degree in environmental studies, but you weren't thinking hospitals. You were thinking like, I don't know, some other ambition, obviously. I want to work for corporations, you know, that have an impact on the environment. I want to help them, you know, mitigate what they do so it minimizes the impact of the environment, you know, whatever your ambition was. Okay. How do you connect with the people that are in that job now? How do you find out who's in that job? And how do you reach out to them? And wouldn't it be useful to sit down with 5 or 10 of those people and say, hey, you know, tell me about this industry. How did you get here? And if you were starting again today, what would you do? Like, would it be different to what you did 10 years ago, 20 years ago? You know, what advice would you have for someone who wanted to be in your role, like eventually, but they were starting out now? What would your advice to them be? You know, and you could get all these pearls, like they would say, like, okay, you know, here's what they don't tell you. You know, you got to get this degree, but in practice, they don't really value it unless you've got this master's in, you know, hospital administration, or you don't have experience in this, you know, in this capacity or something, right? Like, wouldn't that have been useful to know? Then you could factor that into your career and you could come out of school prepared so that when you apply for a job, you have what they're looking for. And, you know, there's no surprises. You know what I mean? That would have probably been useful, but they don't do that kind of thing because they're just not very practical in the world of education, right? It's like they still don't teach this. I remember in trying to, like I helped write the curriculum for a business program, and I remember getting a lot of pushback from people, these administrators, you know, because I wanted to include this in the program. I wanted to do this in the capstone course or whatever, and I did get it in there. But I got a lot of pushback from these people who, like, knew nothing about anything, but were damn sure that, you know, going out and doing informational interviews with industry experts was not a reasonable ask. It's like, what? You know? I was told it was not realistic, even though I'd built a consulting business doing that very thing. But whatever. So it's like, yeah, that's formed my opinion on higher education and some of the issues. Anyway, yeah, so we were here, like I didn't really talk about anything I wanted to talk about today about value, your unique value. I just want to say that I'll just summarize what I did want to say. Usually when you're looking for a job, you're being judged, right? They're judging your value by your resume and, your job application and possibly a job interview. And it's completely at odds with what your true value actually is, what your capabilities are. And this is the real challenge, being able to sort of pair, what you do with what the needs are, of anyone, right? You go to a lot of companies and they don't value you at all. They say, we're not going to hire you. We don't think you could really contribute very much, which is usually crap. Or the reality is that, it's just random chance. Like I've said many times before, they can only hire one person and there's maybe 5 people that are qualified that they've interviewed. And it's just an eeny, meeny, miny, mo thing. Right? They just 4 of those people don't get hired. There's nothing wrong with them. But for some reason, occasionally an employer will tell you, they'll tell you something that casts doubt on your value, which is stupid. They say, you're not a good fit, or, you don't have the required experience. It's like BS. You could do the job. And, so a lot of people internalize this. They think like, oh my God, I'm unemployable. I'm not nearly as valuable as I thought I was. It's like, that's usually crap, just so you know. And a lot of people making these decisions and communicating this kind of stuff to you are people that don't even understand the role anyway, right? You're hired for a technical role or like a sales role or a customer service role, whatever it is. But are you being assessed by a salesperson or a customer service person, or a technical person? No, you're being assessed by someone from HR that the only thing they know are like labor laws and things like this. So, how would they know what your value is when it comes to technical things? You know what I mean? So this is the other kind of thing I think that people do a terrible job on. Where did I leave off here? Thank you, Leo Sunshine. That's very nice. Unconventional advice. Sheesh, academics is their ivory tower. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it isn't all a big conspiracy. It's just that, like nobody is strong in every area. Like that's just a reality, right? Some people have like real depth skill sets. They have expertise in like one area, but in other areas, they're nowhere near as accomplished or smart or prescient, And that's the Achilles heel of higher education, in my opinion. They don't understand how what they do relates to the outside world. It's so stupid. You would think they would, especially with all their fancy fundraising programs that try to connect with their alumni and all this kind of stuff. People out in industry, you would think they'd be more in tune, but they're not. That's definitely their blind spot. And that, in my opinion, goes a long way to creating a lot of the problems that people accuse them of now, which is like they're out of touch. They don't really offer degrees or qualifications that deliver on this promise of value, that they had made. Right? Another thing I wanted to get into today, but I don't have too much time left, is like, if you're a generalist, right? This is the other thing. We're talking about, I guess we're talking about biases. You go to a job interview and they're biased against introverts and for extroverts. That's a common thing. They're biased against people that look really good, right? This is a known thing. They're also biased, in my opinion, against generalists. A lot of jobs, especially if you have to go through a recruiter, right? You might be a specialist. You might have skills in one area. And if you're getting a job in that area, bam, you're a shoo-in. But the generalist, the person who's done a job in that area, but they've also done other things, often they don't get selected according to the sort of corporate enterprise HR process of doing recruitment and selection, because at the end of the day, they have less years of experience with the skills and responsibilities for that role because they've spent their time doing other things too, right? I mean, do you really need 20 years experience to do most jobs? They'll pick someone with 20 years experience over someone who's got like 5 years experience. Do you really need 20 years experience to do most jobs? I'd say no. Sometimes those other 15 years are better spent in other situations, doing other things. You can bring so many other talents and skills to the role, And I can tell you from managing teams of people that just have like depth skill sets, they've done that one thing and nothing else, that's really limiting in many ways. And my heart goes out to all the generalists out there because you guys are underappreciated. I'm a generalist myself. I don't have 25 years in any one area, but I've got 5 years in many, many, many areas. And that's really opened up my eyes. I see people in one industry over here struggling with something they don't know how to solve that, unbeknownst to them, has been completely solved 50 years ago in this other industry. But no two people have seen both those industries, except me. I've spent time in one, then time in the other, and I can see, guys, this has been solved mathematically, in another industry. Here's the formula. Here's like the way you solve it. Bam. And then you look like a genius because you managed to do what no one else could do. You haven't really done anything. You just stolen it. You borrowed it, right? It's not your work. It's somebody else's work, but you're the only one that's seen both situations. That's why generalists can kick ass. And that's something that, that's a tough sell to recruiters in modern recruitment theory. Anyway, that's probably good for today. It's been an hour, so I'm going to be back. I'm coming back in less than an hour, actually. I'm in Central Time in North America, so it's like just past 2 p.m. for me. At 3 p.m., I'm back with another live stream. I'm doing another collaboration. It's the Monday collaboration, and my goal is to collaborate with all the YouTubers in this space. And because everybody gives slightly different advice, which I think is cool, because there is no one size fits all on how you answer a question in a job interview or something. It depends on the level you're at, the job you're going for, and a bunch of other factors, right? So it's great to get people together and talk about some of the differences and the different sort of recommendations and how they all fit together. So if you have any interest in that, come back in less than an hour, and I'll be doing a collaboration once again with the live stream called Career Expert Roundtable. And I've had more. It's very encouraging for me because I've been reaching out to more YouTubers that do this kind of stuff. You've probably seen all our videos, and I'm getting more and more people that want to participate in this. So it'll be building over time. We're going to be getting more and more people on here in the same live stream. So I think it's really cool. That's what I'm trying to build up. Anyway, just the last few comments here. Masters of Healthcare Administration. Okay, awesome. Art Sim, in what ways does an MBA someone up to be a leader? Set up to be a leader. It can help. It gives you the theory. And listen, for example, understanding what power actually is, its different forms, it's based on authority, it's also based on dependency. That's very important to helping you to be an influencer, because I hate this management bullshit speak, but it's true. If you're a leader, which means that you supervise people essentially, and you have to get them to behave the way you would want them to behave, which you do, right? For example, you want all your employees to show up on time. You want all your employees to do the work they're assigned by the deadline you assign them, right? Like things like this, right? To not want to quit their job at the end of the week. So you want them to behave the way you would have them behave. That's what being an influencer is. So managers that are terrible influencers are not very effective. Now think of what motivates you. You're not motivated by bullshit. You're motivated by legitimate stuff, right? Well, learning what that is and how to do it for all the different types of people in all the different types of situations, that'd probably be a useful thing, right? That's what you learn in an area of management or business called organizational theory or organizational behavior. It explains all that. There's been a lot of smart people that have studied all this stuff, like how people behave in organizations. All the crazy crap that you've seen that doesn't make any sense in the workplace, it explains it all. So it's useful. Now, obviously, it's not the be-all, end-all. Knowing the theory is one thing. Being able to do it is another thing. So you need practice. You need experience. But the theory is pretty damn important. There's a lot of people that are terrible managers that are out there that are terrorizing everybody and being completely incompetent and ineffective. And they've got the experience, but they just don't know the theory. They're not practicing the right things. And they're developing pretty narrow views of how you do this stuff because they're ignorant of all the learning and the theory that's been done on this in the last 10,000 years. This has been studied primarily by the military since antiquity, right? When do you need people to do what you say and to all work together? Well, when it's a life or death situation. And when you're fighting for your life, that's the military. So the military has really studied this stuff really hard because their lives depended on it since antiquity. And they put all that knowledge and learning into this field of study. And that's one of the things you study. It's actually fascinating stuff. So maybe you're not super interested in accounting or, whatever, but, maybe you're interested in this stuff. So, yeah, it's pretty important. It's pretty important. Now, some people just have a natural knack for this, and they're not bad without ever having learned anything formally, but you can always improve by actually learning this stuff, in my opinion. At least I certainly did. Okay, Amaze says, "Oh, okay, late. Not sure why I'm getting notifications for the live stream." Yeah, I don't know, but I'll be back soon. Leo says, "This is the first time I learned about generalist, and I think I might be one. Haha, thank you for this log." Well, if you've had okay, put it this way. You've got generalists and you got specialists. Specialists are someone that has a depth skill set. That means they've picked something and they've gone really, really deep. They've got 20 years experience or something just doing that one thing. Think of a surgeon that only works on heart transplants. That's pretty damn specialized, right? But you get them to work in a doctor's office dealing with patients that come in with a common cold or something, and they don't know what to do, and they're terrible at it, So yes, they're a doctor. That's pretty specialized to begin with. But then on top of that, they're a very specific type of doctor. You know what I mean? That's a specialist. Generalists are people that, have done many different things. They've done a little bit of sales, a little bit of technical stuff in one industry, technical stuff in another industry. They've dealt with accounting, they've dealt with money, they've dealt with people, they've dealt with supplies, they've dealt with transportation, they've dealt with, all kinds of things, right? Projects, maintenance, whatever. And you might think that those are all completely unrelated, right? And they are in large part, but it's amazing when you get one of those people and you throw anything at them and they know what to do, right? Think of if you're having your own business, a small business where you got to wear multiple hats, those people are invaluable. Or big business where, being an accountant is great, but if you don't understand sales, how can you run a company, right? You've got to be somewhat of a generalist to make strategy. You know what I mean? So there's uses for these people, and they're often overlooked. Okay, I'm signing off soon, but I just want to get through the last couple of comments here. Yeah, Leo, I think you might be a generalist. If you think you might be, you probably are. Moist Teabag, there's a handle, says, had to drop by to say thank you. You're absolutely welcome, Moist Teabag. With your help, I managed to secure a new job with a pay rise and a lovely workplace. Normal hours and not being overworked and underpaid, albeit with this name, not with this name or profile picture. Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. If you had that name, I'd be concerned. I think you might need some help, but that's great to hear, and I appreciate you coming back and telling me this. So thank you very much, Moist Teabag. You keep prospering. And thanks to everyone else. Thanks to Ken Adams and Leo and Unconventional Advice and everyone who participated. You guys are awesome. I will see you again. I will be doing another episode of Honest HR Nitrous on Wednesday, and I will be back in less than an hour with a collaboration. You guys are awesome. I wish you nothing but the best. Take care.